Oren Lyons. Presentation topic: Challenges we face today as Indigenous nations and challenges we face today as the human species.
Saguli. He shot not Dogus. Dogus can. I said, hello, you're the best. Isn't that true? You shot not, you're the best. Dogus, isn't that true? Well, we're the best that's left. Here we are. You know, one way or the other. Listening this morning, and I'm very sorry that I missed yesterday, because the amount of scholarship and hard work that goes into those papers, and what we've had to learn over these years to maintain our integrity and also continue to fight. We've had to learn a lot, and I've been a professor at University of Buffalo for 37 years in American history, pretty strong emphasis on Native history, our history. And I was listening to a very good presentation this morning, very well researched, and it was pleasant. It was very, I don't know how to say it. I felt that all the work that we've been doing is bearing very strong fruit in terms of the people who have picked up this fight over all this period of time. And listening to Tanya's position, I remember when we first took her under our wing and said, we're going to take you over there and you're going to learn some stuff. And from that time to today, being instructed by her now, that's really really an accomplishment, I think, on her part and on the part of all the leaders who inspire young people to do that. You know, Tanya started out just like who you are right here, sitting here. I'm talking to young people now, flat out, just learned all that. A little closer.
A little closer, yeah.
This is, good, I can hear that. This is my instruction to all the speakers. Get close to it. I can't hear you, my ears are bad these years. So, the leadership that has been consistent through all of this battle has been traditional leadership. And the only one that I actually knew about, and grew up in, was at Onondaga. Onondaga is the central fire of the Haudenosaunee capital, so to speak, where the root of the great tree of peace is. And it's old, very old, as all of our nations are. We're indigenous to this land. I should say at this point that Arthur's father, George Manuel, he was fighting a strong fight, and he was working Central South America, North America. In 1975, we had a meeting in Victoria, and at that time, we were preparing. 75, we hadn't gone to Geneva yet, and we were preparing our discussion and how we were going to identify ourselves. And so we went through all of those terms, Aboriginal, Native, so forth, and we decided on Indigenous. So that's just to let you know where that term comes from. And that was agreed upon by delegates from North, Central, and South America, that we would, when we travel to Geneva. When we address the world, we will identify ourselves as the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere. And so that's why that terminology is used today. It's not used because that's how they identify us, that we decided that's how we would identify ourselves. And of course, we didn't know a lot about the whole rest of the world. I certainly didn't. And in time, indigenous, we heard from the Kurds in Turkey saying, we're indigenous. We've been here 4,000 or 5,000 years ourselves. And we heard from the Africans saying, we're indigenous. But we weren't thinking about that at that time. We were the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere. But we were accompanied in '77 by the Sami people, Norway, Sweden, Finland. And there have been strong allies. There have been strong allies over all this time. And the meeting in Victoria was very important in the consolidation of what I hear of how we have to get together in a common cause and unite ourselves so that we can approach the public as one people. And that was determined there, and we finally did get to Geneva in '77. I remember during the development of that particular trip, Six Nation was central because of our long, long association with our brothers from across the water. And I heard about the Gaswenta today, mentioned the two-row Wampum, and the use of Wampum, and the use of our system of thinking. And as Felix Cohen, who wrote the Federal Handbook or the Handbook on Federal Indian Law, Felix Cohen, 1941. You want to get that version because they've changed it. Don't get the other versions because they've edited it severely. Get the original version. And Felix Cohen talked about the Americanization of the people from Europe. How did you become to be who you were? It's a long, long, long story. In terms of our association, very short story in terms of our time on this land and place. We're very old people, all of us. And all of the nations where they are know, you know your lands and you know what it takes to survive, and very, very different. Everybody has their own culture, they've got their own songs, and I was glad to hear about that this morning, the songs and ceremonies, which are the foundation of our identity, and that's so fundamental to today's arguments. And you should be able to answer the question, who are you? You should be able to answer that question. I remember, again, we go to the stories. As I was learning, I was pretty, well, you know, as kids, and I remember making excuses for myself. My behavior wasn't altogether too good all the time. And we were a very lively group. We played a lot of lacrosse, we did a lot of fishing, we did a lot of fighting. Been in a whole lot of barroom fights. Sometimes I lost, sometimes I won. But we always had them, sometimes just for the hell of it, as you know. Anyway, all through that, and then by amazing stroke of circumstance and luck, I went to a university. After I came out of the Army, I was drafted in 1950, went into the 82nd Airborne. So I'm a jumper, I'm a trooper, I'm well-trained militarily, and probably 82nd is one of the best military trained troops in the world. Navy SEALs coming in heavy, military. Teach you funny things in there. Teach you, well, long story short, you know, I didn't like them, they didn't like me, we didn't get along very well. So I was out as soon as I could get out. But my brother stayed in, Lee stayed in. And Lee had to leave. You know, when I got drafted, Leroy had to join because we had been in so many fights in so many places. He was now by himself and nobody holding his back. He said, I had to follow you in. He said, get out of town. And so he joined the 82nd, and then he went on to Korea in 1950. And 25 years, 4 tours in Vietnam. Lee was, we were close siblings, almost within a year of each other. So we kind of grew up as almost twins, you might say, you know, grew up together. And he turned out to be, he was fluent in Vietnamese. He was in intelligence, he was Green Beret, and all kinds of medals and so forth. Tough soldier, tough soldier. And what soured him on all of that is because they wanted to run him through another tour in Vietnam. Now he had 6 months to go to finally get out of there, and he had survived 3 tours, and they wanted him on a 4th tour. And he said, hell no. He said, 6 months ago, I'm not going to go over there. They sent him over anyway. And he was sent right up to the front lines. And in other words, he's going to try to kill him. We'll show you who's boss here. And he went up there. So he's, you know, an old soldier, an old salt. Famous, as I found out later, you know, but threw his duffel bag on a bunk, and a runner come down from CQ and said, CQ wants to see you. He said, I just got here. And you know, they were bunkered in, they were sandbagged in, they were living in the ground up there. You could hear the firefights out front. He was mad. All that service that he gave, and they were gonna put him right up front. So anyway, he goes up to the CQ, steaming. And there's a colonel who's the company commander up there, colonel. And he's surprised looking at the colonel. Usually captains or majors, you know, colonels for company commanders. He was wondering what he did to get there. And so he said, Lyons, he said. He said, you Indian? He said, yep. Where you from? Upstate New York, Onondaga, Syracuse. He says, you know a guy by the name of Oren Lyons? He said, yeah, it's my brother. He said, plays lacrosse. Yeah, he says, not good as me, but he does play, he said. And he said, well, he said, what the hell are you doing up here? I'm looking at your record. You got no business being here. He said, well, that's what I know. And he said, so you're Lyons' brother? I said, yeah. Jesus. He said, go on, change your clothes. Get it comfortable, come on back up. So he went down, changed his clothes, come back up. And the guy's name was Reagan, Ray Reagan. Ray Reagan and I went head to head as vying for goalkeeper All-American 1957. I was playing for Syracuse, he was playing for Army. He was a hell of a goalie. But we beat Army. We're both undefeated that year. And we beat Army. So we went undefeated, and Ray was in the other goal. And it was a hell of a game, you know. And then we went down and we played in the North-South game as goalies for the North. So we got to be pretty friendly, and I respected him because he was a damn good goalie. And so anyway, he says to He said, Jesus, you know what? He says, they're trying to kill you. He said, that's what I say. Well, he said, ain't going to work here. He opened up a bottle of Old Granddad. He said, they were drunk for 6 months up there. Every night, to sit there and talk about the crowd, lied to each other, you know. But it just tells you how things go around. Actually, that colonel saved my brother's life. And that came from a lacrosse game in 1957. So you never know. That's the point of my little story here. You just never know where things are going to take you and how important things are that you may not think so at the particular time, but will turn out to be maybe a turning point in your whole life later on. Well, that was sort of my life all the way, you know. I quit school in the 7th grade. Again, they didn't like me and I didn't like them. And I used to hide my shotgun or fish pole, whatever the season was, get off the bus, go back home, pick it up, and go back in the woods, you know. So my teacher was the woods. I learned everything in the woods. And I was good. I was a good hunter. And had to be, you know. In the 40s, you couldn't hardly get ammunition, never mind. So you couldn't waste a shot. If you had 3 bullets or 3 shells, you better come back with 3 something. You just couldn't miss. And I learned a lot in the woods. And the woods are probably the best teachers. In the history of the Haudenosaunee, way back when we first came together and the leaders were sitting there and said, how are we going to instruct our people on this new path that we're on? And they made an agreement, a treaty, you might call it. It's called One Dish, One Spoon. And you all know what that means, one dish, one spoon. And there was another phrase that went with it, and it said, nobody owns the woods, but everybody is responsible. And you know what that means. And so, we're a traditional government at Onondaga. We're still raising chiefs the way we did 1,000 years ago. There's no Bureau of Indian Affairs on our land. We don't allow any police on our land. We'll fight for it. And so we're independent. But we have a long history of that. So it doesn't just happen, it's just what you inherit. And as you will all know, and especially the youngsters here, you'll learn as you go along how it is. And you respect these elders and these people who've been holding the traditions, holding the line. Because that's who we are. And the question arises here, you know, somebody asks you, who are you? Can you answer the question? And so, going through this kind of a personal history here to give you a perspective on where I learned. It's all pretty hot stuff, you know. One made All-American, did all that, you know, in school, went to school, out of 7th grade. And I'll tell you, that wasn't easy. But I had a lot of help all the way. So after my graduation, my uncle, one of the chiefs, Irving Paulus Sr., I grew up with his son, Irving Jr., and we're the 2 oldest chiefs in the council today. But the old man said, hey, you want to go fishing? Boy, you know, he knew right where the bass were. He knew. I said, sure. So we got in his, put the boat up on his car, and we went out in the lake. And we went out there. It's a beautiful day. And I'm thinking, he knows right where they are, you know, and sit right here. So he dropped the anchor, pretty deep lake, a lot of bass. And So he's on that end, and I'm on this end of the boat, you know, and he's saying, well, he says, you just graduated from the university. I said, yeah. And I said, uh-oh. I had no place to go. I was in the, I couldn't get out of the boat. I was there. And he didn't say anything more. So we're putting out our bait and putting out our lines and so forth. Well then, he said, you must know a lot. I said, yeah, I learned a lot. And he says, well, you must know who you are. Yeah. Okay, so good. Say nothing. By this time, I'm really alert. I sent back, I said, this is going to be a long day here. Already. So we're going along, finally he says, well, can you tell me who you are? And I have been thinking, okay, I got to answer this, so there we go, start, you know. This is my name, this is my Indian name, this is my clan, you know, this is my mother, father, this is their relation. Every time I would say to him, I'd get quiet, he said, and that's it, huh? That's it? I'd say, okay, so then I'd try again, you know, add on everything. Finally, he said, need some help? I said, yeah. All right, he said. He said, look up here. And we were on a bluff. And it was like maybe 200 feet up there, and there was a young pine tree growing right out of the rocks up there. He said, see that tree? I said, yeah. Well, he says, that's who you are. He said, see how that root goes in there into the earth? Yeah. That's your mother. And he went on to instruct me. And I learned more in that boat in the afternoon. I did 4 years of school at the university. But he was helping me out, because I was a pretty wise-ass kid, and you know how you are when you do a lot of stuff. Somebody's going to knock you down, you know. And he just... So I really reflected, and it was a lesson that I never, ever forgot. And that's what I'm telling you right now. That's how close you are. You're part of the earth. And everybody knows that. All Indians know that. But we don't say that very often. And when we talk to our Western brothers, they don't think that way. They don't understand that. They don't understand the relationship, how close we are, and who we are. And so, he said, if you know who you are, and you understand, he said, you can go anywhere in the world, and you can learn all you can learn, and you'll never be carried away with another idea or another thought. You will always be who you are. So, that was my anchor. And that's what I did. I went around all over the world. I've been around a lot of places, learned a lot of stuff, and never once ever forgot who I am. And it was a, what would you say, a PhD in life that I got there. It was a simple thing. Planned the whole thing. Planned the whole thing. When I was out there in the middle of all that discussion, I said, that son of a gun, he got me out here to do this. Great man. Very honest. Very straightforward. And I can go on in all kinds of stories, you know. In Vietnam, when America was taking the people off the building with helicopters, Chief Paulus, and his young son, now a chief, and myself, we were in the White House that very day. We're in the White House, and it was like we were down there to invite the White House up to Onondaga to have a discussion And we had a good relation with them. It's an amazing time for us. But when we got there in the White House, it was strange, you know. I didn't see anybody. Quiet, somber. Look at each other, we feel that. Going on, we talked to Dr. Theodore Mars that time. And we were there at his invitation. We were going to deliver a wampum invitation for him to come up to Onondaga. And we delivered the wampum in our traditional way. And we said, now that you have that in your hand, you have to answer that. Make sure you answer it one way or the other. And the best way to answer it is bring it back and give us your answer when you return. He appreciated that and so forth. And then he was strangely quiet, you know. And he said, you men had something to eat? No. He said, you have lunch with me? Sure. We did. And it was quiet, and here the waiter, the man that was waiting on us was a Filipino man, you know, and we looked at him, he looked at us, looking at each other, both wondering what we're doing there. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Well, we recognized each other. And then he said, what do you think about what's going on in Vietnam now? He said, we're trying to rescue those children that were half caste, that were half Vietnamese and half American. He said, they're not treating them well. And Chief Paulus, the old man, said, you're just using them. He said, you made a mistake to go there. Should have never been there in the first place. And now you're using them. That's not good. He said, that's not right. That was, again, Chief Paulus's statement directly. He says, well, he said, you know, and he was a very good friend of ours, really one of the few people at that time that had something in his mind for us. We never had the run of the White House like we had then. But anyway, he said, well, he says, I'm in charge of that. He was a medical doctor, pediatrician. And old man there was relentless. He said, still doesn't make it right what you're doing. He said, should never been there in the first place. That's all he said. So it got pretty quiet. Then I realized that we were at the White House at the major time of their defeat. And that's why they were so quiet. They lost the war. First war they lost in a long time. And I know that the other wars, when they lost the war, or when they won all the wars that they were in, after the war they would turn around and say, well, what else is we got to take care of? Look right at the Indians. Take care of those guys. Well, I remember those days. They come right after us. Treaties and everything else. This time, no, it was quiet. And I had a sympathy for the old man. I had sympathy for him. But something that they caused themselves. So these relationships and these stories and so forth, they have a relevance, and they give you a grounding on how you make your decisions and how you understand things and how human beings are human beings. In today's times when we are facing major systemic change in the whole system of the universe, as far as we're concerned, we're a small part of the universe, but it's changing here. And it's a systemic change. It's a change that you're not going to fix. You're not going to fix it. How are you going to fix it? Carried it to the point where you can't fix it. You might be able to modify it a little bit. You might be able to if you all get together. If we all get together, then that's the point of this discussion. This is not a discussion about Indians and white people, or Indians and black people, or any color. It's about the human species, and that was the point that I was making. This is about the human species. The human species is one family. We're one family no matter what color you are, because we can change blood. You go to a hospital, you're going to get blood from somebody, and it won't be, could be anybody in the world, matter of fact, because we have the same blood. So what does that say? It says you're the same family. So we're a human family. And we're out of balance. We're way, way out of balance. So in those feisty years when I was a kid, 1950, 20 years old, it's kicking up dust all over the place. 2.5 billion people in the world. It took a long time to get to 2.5 billion people. You go look back at human history, and it's this long, long history. Now here we are, 2012, 62 years later, and there's 7 billion people in the world. Does that tell you something? Folks, tell you something? 7 billion people, and compounding. It's not just growing, compounding. It's nature. We're nature. Think you're going to stop that? Lots of luck. So what do you do? What do we do? Well, we have to go back to people who know. We have to get some direction here. We have to modify behavior. We have to modify human behavior. We're going to modify the behavior of the buffaloes. They've already been whacked once. They came back, they're still there. You can't modify the behavior of salmon. No, they're going to do what they're going to do or not do according to what you do. We're closely, as Chief Paula said, we're the part of the earth. And if we don't act that way and we don't understand that, then we're going to get modified. And we're pretty much on our way to being modified right now. This is like the 11th inning in a 12-round championship fight. That's where we are right now. '11th round. It's all in question. We're going to lose. That's where we are. And it's not going to be just a loss. It's going to be consequence. There's going to be consequence to this loss. Any of the hunters, I know you got hunters out here. Got good woods. Well, you used to have good woods. I look out there coming in, I said, what's wrong? What's going on with your woods here? First thing I look at, look at the woods, see? And who's Thompson? Who the hell is Thompson? Name a whole goddamn river after him, right? Who the hell is he? Came through? That get you a river? Put your name on that? Get you in trouble, thinking that way. Name mountain after yourself? Can't do that. That's a different way of thinking. Get you in trouble. You have to modify. Smaller houses, going back to the old ways, I'll tell you. You remember some of those old houses where they were just that big right here, 10 people living in there. Why? 2 or 3 sticks of wood to heat that place. You're going to live on 12,000 square foot house or here? You're right. You know what it costs to heat this right here? You know the kind of energy it takes? Energy you don't have? That's the fight we're in now. 7 billion people, that's what's different about today. And when I was 20 years old, 2.5 billion people, well, yeah, you had a little playroom. 7 billion people? I don't think so. So where do you go? Well, you go back to your ceremonies. You learn how to be grateful. You learn how to give thanks again. That's what the ceremonies are, nothing but thanksgiving again and again and again. Be thankful, be thankful. Don't ask for more. You got enough here. Got enough of everything, right? Just share it up. That's the other part. You're going to have to learn how to share. Because if you don't learn how to share, then you suffer the consequence again. So how in the world, then, the big question that I can't answer, and maybe you can help, or maybe you have, I don't know, but the question is, how do you instruct 7 billion people on their relationship to the earth? How are you going to do that? But that's exactly how you're going to modify behavior. Respect. Indians have all kinds of laws, but they never wrote one down. All kinds of rules. Oh yeah, a lot of rules, a lot of laws. Sharing was one, main one. Share everything. I know you guys up here hunting in the big woods, you know, leave part of that meat hanging in a tree for somebody. Somebody's going to need it. Share it up. That's common law. It's happening all the time. Don't take only what you need, and be respectful of that. Well, I don't know, you know, with 3, 4 people being born every second now, how are you going to instruct them? Who's the instructors? You know, your instructors, where are they? Who's listening? The reason why I brought my hat here is to make an illustration of who's leaders, you know, who's your leader? Hey man, what's up? What's up, man? Yeah. That's a leader. Your kids are following another leader. Snatcher at Onondaga as well as anywhere else. So that's where we're at. Huh? We hear good, amazing, good presentations here about the history. Now we go from there. Now what has helped the Onondaga Nation and the Haudenosaunee is we've never given up our instruction on raising leaders. So we can turn around and we can look straight back over 1,000 years and see all those leaders. That helps us when we turn, we look ahead. We say 7 generations, that was the instruction. Make your decision on behalf of 7 generations coming. You, today, make your decision on their behalf. Then you yourself will have peace. It's all about sharing and responsibility. It's about being an adult, being responsible. I know every one of you went through life I did, and hungry. Kids are hungry all the time. Share it up even. Another story down in Rio, 1992, and big gathering. Carioca, #1, all the Indians from the woods came out. Geez, we had a great meeting. They built a big house out of straw and, you know, their own style home, cool. And we were living there, and they came in. I mean, they were still living in the woods. They came in painted. They were wearing paint, carrying their spears, singing their song. Gee, it made you feel good to see them talk about medicine. They were there with a common cause. We sat there. We had this big meeting at Carioca, Indigenous People, making our position. And during that time, I remember this young lady trying her best. She's just an American girl, trying her best to get to Carioca because she felt this need to be there. Like it was like a calling. People came from all over the world to get there, and she couldn't get her airfare. She asked for help, and we didn't have enough to get ourselves there. Never mind, we couldn't help her, but she made it. Yeah. Going along the streets one time, there she was. Hey, what are you doing here? Ah, she said, I'm working with the kids. I said, what kids? She says, the feral kids out there, the ones who have no mother, no father, feral, living in the streets. And they had cleansed them. They had taken them out, a good many of them, to have a good showcase for all the nations coming in. And I said, so how are you doing that? She says, well, I'm feeding them. And I said, well, how are you doing that? She says, well, I'm just going around to the restaurants and I waste all this food, and she said, well, come on, follow me. So that evening I followed her. And she went in the restaurant, and the restaurants knew right away they had the food stacked up. She had obviously told them who she was and what she was doing. Give her the food. And she said, come on. And we had like 3 boxes of food that people just wouldn't eat, didn't feed. And she said, we went to a street and we stood under a street light. She said, just stand here. Let me see the head come around the corner. And little by little, this leader came out, who was, I would say, maybe 8 years old. And he had a family. There were, I think, 9 of them in his family. They were all younger than he was. He was the leader. He was 8. And he knew that she had the food. So he came across that street just like a cat, looking at me all the time. But she had the food, so didn't trust me at all. Finally got over there, and she handed him the food, and he flashed a smile that I'll never forget. Beautiful smile. Disappeared. She says, watch. In a little while, down below, under the street light, here they come. They all sat in a circle, and he opened up one, and took one bite and passed it around. When that was finished, he opened up the second one, and the third one. One bite at a time, each person got. I said, there's a goddamn lesson that they should be talking about over here, with all that pompous. You know what the president said at that time, Bush? Everybody was waiting. He didn't want to be there, but there he was. So his speech was, he said, the standard of living of the American people are not up for discussion here, he said. That was his message. In other words, I don't give a shit what you guys are talking about. Let's take care of ourselves. Talk about water on a party. But I understood that. I knew that. Shocked people. Just the way we were shocked when the United States voted against the Doctrine, Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. It didn't surprise me, because we've been fighting them for 30 years. I knew exactly who was going to. But it was good for the people to hear that around the world. They said, I thought they were very democratic. England, United States, Australia, New Zealand. They're still there. They call them, what do they call them? There's a short name for them. They stick together all the time. Why? Because there's a lot of indigenous people there, and there's treaties there. That's why. Canada. Bad boy. Canada, bad boy today. If they open up those tar sands, forget it. Game is over. If they open up those tar sands, you're going to get so much carbon into the atmosphere, you're just not going to handle it. And all your recycling and everything that you do mean nothing if you allow that to happen. Keystone XL pipeline, devil himself. You gotta fight it. You gotta fight it. It's a responsibility. It's a responsibility to the future, responsibility to the 7 generations. It's a good fight. We're getting help. People are starting to wake up. So you have to encourage people. And this kind of a meeting is a good meeting. I wish every one of those kids that are out here at the university was sitting here. They get an education sitting here. There's great presentations made. Thank Art. Thank your father too, Art. I'm an old timer. Been around a long time. Still got a few shots left. But I think we're at that pitch. It's not decided yet. You know the guy that says, I'm the decider? Remember him? I'm the decider. No. We're the deciders. And so, are we going to do it or not? You know, up for the fight or aren't you? You know, I'm up for the fight. A little slower. Played in a lacrosse game this spring, you know, our medicine game. And I was standing there with my stick. Kid about this big comes up to me. He's got his stick. Bumps me. I look at him and say, well, we're about even. Well, I like that spirit. It's a good spirit. He ain't giving up at all. And I know these young people ain't giving up either. So it's up to us, the leaders, stand up. Stand up and step out. Boy, this is no time to be casual. It's going to take courage. And thank you for your work. That's how it's going to go. So I'm carrying on. And I don't know whether that's helpful for you here, but just giving you a broader perspective, what I see, and where we got to go. And it's all in the offing. It's not decided yet. So it's up to us. So I encourage all of us. Learn your ceremonies, get back to your ceremonies, get back to the Thanksgiving and teach your brother. Teach your brother how to pray. The old woman said to me, to Suki, people forget how strong prayer is. They forget. But we got it. Let's use it. Donate to. Thank you.